So a lot of times we run into people who want to be landlords, but their biggest issue is they hear about all of these tenant horror stories. And we're here to talk about the tenant horror stories, some of the myths that come with it, and how you can avoid it, and how many people are actually avoiding these tenant stories, these tenant horror stories. I'm Bwanka with the Compass team.
And it's Safras with the Compass team.
And that's what we're going to be diving into today. So, Safras, I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure you hear it whenever people are thinking about becoming a landlord. I mean, we do work with a lot of investors, and this is always their biggest worry. What if the tenants are not paying? I saw in the news that people can't get out for 9 months. People are ruining people's houses. It's so hard to evict in Ontario. What are your thoughts? What do you think about something like this?
I think all of the above is true. But what you only hear about is the bad stories, right? You only hear about the bad story. No one's going to say, hey, guess what? My tenant's great. They've stayed here for 5 years. They've paid their bills 1 week early. And that's my situation as an example. I have one of my units rented out 6 years now. She pays 2 weeks early. If I send her a bill, boom, it's done. They maintain the property. But of course, for me, it's because I always vet my personal tenants and our clients' tenants. That's what we do. That's the real thing. But yeah, absolutely. On the other spectrum, if you just get, Joe Blow in your unit, there's a higher chance, right?
Okay. Yeah, for sure. No, I think Joe Blow is usually coming from somebody who's not a real estate agent. They just have a place and they want to rent it out. Maybe they put an ad on Instagram or their Facebook. They ask their friends and family, hey, who do you know who's thinking about renting a place? Their friends and family have someone they work with. Oh, this person's thinking about moving, and you just meet them and you look them in the eyes and you say, yeah, I think this person's gonna be good and they're gonna pay rent on time every single time. But there's a lot more to that vetting process, and that's something that we're gonna be jumping into today. But like Safra said before, for every one person and every horror story that you hear, because it's the news, right? The news always makes something small very loud, and it becomes this is what it is for the masses. Absolutely. But for every one that's happening, there's thousands of people who are just paying their rent on time every week, and you just don't hear about them. So when it comes to the vetting process, what are some things that we do to ensure that it's a good tenant?
I think for us, I always say everything is actually verified. You again, on the news you hear about it, right? A lot of people are creating fake documents. We're talking job letters, pay stubs, tax returns, all of it. Even their landlords are not real landlords. So now what we do is, so someone says, hey, I've lived here for 5 years. This is my landlord's name and number. We actually go double check. Number one, is that really the landlord? That's a quick and easy, takes a couple of minutes. Find out, is that the real landlord's name? And then if you can find their number, we will call them directly and say, hey, has this person, how long have they been here? How has their rent record been? When they're moving out, did they give you notice? All the appropriate questions to make sure that maybe they're upsizing or downsizing, whatever it may be. It's just the story makes sense. When the story makes sense, it helps. But if you start hearing a little bit of the red flags, oh no, this and that, then you start looking into it more, and typically the whole file will just be a red flag.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, I think that's an amazing place to start, is finding out, does this landlord own the home? And if the landlord owns the home, now we also still have to talk to them, find out, are they paying on time, things like that. And then I would say it's very important to call references, like personal references and past landlord references, and job employment. So getting a job employment letter, but also talking to the boss or the superior, somebody who they work for, to verify, yes, they work here, yes, this is how much money they make, and then you can understand how much money is coming in. Sometimes people are self-employed. A lot of tenants are not, a lot of landlords don't want someone who's self-employed. Me personally, I think Safras is the same. We actually like people who are self-employed because they have to go out there and they have to get it, and they can't just get fired. But what we are able to do is we're able to vet them. We're able to say, okay, you know what? Show us your bank documents over the last 3 months, over the last 6 months, and you can see how much money is coming in every single month, which makes it a lot easier to know this person can afford to live here or they can't afford to live here.
Yeah, it's with the self-employed people. Sometimes we can ask them for their T4s, right? There's so much more that we would have to look into, but that's also very important, right? Like you have to double check employment. And now what we do is, people give fake job letters these days and pay stubs. I've seen it on the listing site. I'm like, this looks fake. A company doesn't misspell anything, so you have to check for any spelling errors. And then what we do now is instead of calling, sometimes they'll put a manager on it. Fine. However, what we do is if they have an HR, if it's a bigger company, we call HR directly and see. It's just, hey, does this person work here? HR is allowed to verify that, and that's the easiest way because, hey, anybody could be a manager. You put your buddy's phone number down and their name, you call them, hey, it's XYZ. It's hard to verify. So that's why we do the HR verification, of course, only typically with bigger companies.
Yeah. And okay, now what I want to do, I want to tell you a story of a client, one of my favorite clients. But she actually had 3 different tenants over the last 3 years. Now, this doesn't always happen, but I want you to get a better understanding of it and understanding of how just the general public look at future tenants as well.
Absolutely.
So, the first year we found a really good tenant. This guy was self-employed, brought in lots of money, and he had him and his wife, they were going to be moving in there. Now, the client, we also did a meeting in person. So that's another thing you can do as well. To make you feel more comfortable, you can meet them before accepting. So we did a meeting with them and the client said, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be good. Do you think they're going to be good? I said, yes, from everything that I've verified, they're going to be good. And those people ended up being great tenants, but after a year, they did have to leave. The next person comes, again, we find a good tenant, good income. Also, the place was beautiful after they left. Again, the client says, you know what? I don't think this person is gonna be that good. I said, no, they're gonna be good. This is a great tenant. You should accept them. They accept them. Again, lived there for 1 year, but ended up moving somewhere else. Just life changes. Absolutely. And it always depends on the type of home that you have. So now it gets to the third one, and this happened recently. And what happened was the client knew someone who is an older lady, nice older lady, and she said, yeah, this lady, she wants to move into my home. And I said, okay, yeah, let's talk. So I started talking to her, asking her questions. The most important thing is asking questions. And I said, okay, so can I call your previous landlord? And she said, no, you can't call my previous landlord. I said, why not? I said, did you always pay rent on time? She said, oh no, there was something happened in my life and I wasn't able to pay rent on time. And the calls and the questions just kept on coming. It was about a 15-minute conversation with her. But by the end of this conversation, I said, 100% do not take her.
Absolutely.
She seems really nice. She has great decor around her home, great furnishings. This is something that you do not take someone because they have great furnishings in their home. And then I told this older lady, hey, we can't accept you, and she wasn't very happy at all about it. And she messaged me 2 days after. She said, I found another place and it was easy. There was barely any questions asked. So another thing I found out while talking to her is there's lawyers that were involved. So she owes money, and this is probably why she's leaving the other place. I never got to speak to her landlord, but what you're able to see from something like this is she seems really nice, but that doesn't always line up because she's not the one who's paying. So now these other people that becomes their problem. And again, they didn't have a professional who was vetting and who was looking into all of this. And this right here is the importance of getting a professional. But again, one of the most important things is just seeing money and making sure that they're going to be able to afford the rent every single month and even more than that.
Absolutely. It's like, to your point, it's, when you meet someone, it's like, the first date or the first interview, everybody's perfect. Everybody's dressed to the T's. Everything they say out of their mouth is it's beautiful. It's like, they're selling themselves for you. But then once you dig deep and see, hey, XYZ, this happened, that happened, then you can actually get the true story. But in the first meeting, everybody's going to sell themselves, right? So that's why, like, even credit report, we haven't even talked about that yet. Very important, right? Sometimes here and there, things happen in life, of course, but in a perfect world, we always get the best credit, no judgments, no defaults, no overdue debts, whatever it may be. That's really important too, right? So, yeah, to your story, it's just knowing someone that knows somebody is not enough. It's great to say, hey, you know what? I'll consider you, but let's do all the background check. Regardless.
Yeah. And even still, just seeing a credit report and seeing the number that's on the credit report, you got to go deeper. Credit reports are long and they're very detailed, and it's something that we look over. It's something that we're used to looking over. You got to go deep into that and see what are their monthly payments. Is like, maybe they have so many monthly payments that they might not even be able to afford your place when you're seeing all the money that they have coming in.
Yeah, because we see some people that are super high income, but also super high debt. They have a $3,000 car payment. They owe $20K here, $30K here, and at the end of the month, the numbers don't add up. And again, they might be able to afford to pay for the unit itself, but about longevity, making sure that that happens over 12 months, that's where we really get into the credit report. And sometimes the credit report's 20, 30 pages long, so you really have to go into it. It's very important.
Yeah. So for sure, like, the biggest thing that we're saying is you have to do the work up front.
Yep.
You have to do the work up front to get the right tenant. And when you get the right tenant, everything else from there becomes like very, very smooth sailing. And then you don't have to get to that point where you have to evict them and you have to take them to court and you have to go through all of that process, because taking care of everything up front and using a professional is worth way more than the stress and the headache and the time that is going to come from not getting the right tenant.
Yeah, I think, you said it last. It's the right tenant. People, the problem people have, like landlords, especially newer landlords, they haven't been in the game for long enough. They're like, oh, it's been vacant for 2 weeks. I'm losing money. Let me just throw someone in here. Oh, you want a unit? Cool. Sign me up, right? They want someone to move in early, and then they forego the whole process. But we always say a good tenant is the most important thing. Maybe someone's gonna pay $100 more, and you're like, okay, at the end of the year, that's $1,000. But it's better to have a good tenant, because that $1,000 that you're going to make over that next 12 months could potentially turn into we're talking real money now. We're talking like $25,000, $30,000, because we talked about it. It's, if they stop paying, then you have to take them to court, right? And then if they stop paying anyways, and it takes you to court, it could be 9, 12, maybe 6 months, but you're losing money. Then you have to get them evicted. You have to get a paralegal. Like, it's just adding up, right?
Yeah.
So now you're trying to save that, I need to fill it in ASAP, but it's not. You have the number one thing. I will tell my landlord, hey, cut this person some slack, $50 off rent, but they're best tenants. They will pay on time or early, and you don't have to worry about also the unit being damaged. That's also really important. Make sure it's clean. When they moved out, you don't have to repaint the whole place, cost a couple grand, do the floors, none of that stuff, right? Don't rush. And if you see a tenant that is rushing to get into your unit tomorrow, that is the biggest red flag of all time, because they're hiding something. Maybe they're getting evicted tomorrow. It's like,
the old lady that I was talking about before, she wanted to get in tomorrow. I can move in tomorrow. I need to get in ASAP.
Yeah. Those ones then you have to wonder why. Why do you have to get in somewhere ASAP? Of course, everybody needs a home, but there's a backstory that we need to really dig deep into.
Okay, so now somebody listened to this. They still don't want to use a professional. What are the top tips that we're going to give them? We've probably already talked about them, but what are the top 3 tips that they need to know to get the right tenant?
I would say get all documentation. So we have a list that we go by. Get all their documentation. Once you get the documentation, you need to call and verify everyone and anyone that you can about the documentation. Receiving documentation means nothing. You have to verify, right? Do your due diligence. Do what we would do, right? If you want to do it yourself, some people do it by themselves and they do a great job. Just know, double, triple check everything, because the amount of fake documents I have seen in the last couple of years has gone exponential.
Okay, so do your homework.
Do your homework, absolutely, yeah.
Make sure you're finding out who they are, checking the credit, and then I would also say, like, meet with them.
Absolutely, 100%,
Meet with them
100%.
before accepting them. Make sure you have a contract. Make sure everything is in place, and to get the best result, just call us.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it yourself, I think from this video you're gonna have a lot of different points that are gonna help you a lot. But yeah, our goal is always to just make sure you get your money every single month, your home stays damage free, and you don't have a lot of stress, because all of this stuff that we're talking with, it all comes with stress. You just want someone who you just never have to ever hear from them until they say, all right, I'm getting out of here, it's time for me to go.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, everybody wants to save money and make money. It's just the nature of the world that we live in. And, you know, people try to do it themselves to save money. That's ultimately the only thing. But if you're trying to do that, then you need to go above and beyond to vet this person. Because, yeah, you might be able to save a couple of grand maybe doing it yourself, right? Potentially. But the potential negative repercussions are likely 10 times the cost of the service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like some people know how to change their oil at home. Great. If you know how to do a great job, do it. But if you are even slightly unsure, you should probably not do it, because how much will you save changing $100? But that problem could cost you $10,000. Similar in a different context.
Yeah. So today was just all about tenant horror stories, how to avoid the tenant horror stories. If there's anything else that you want us to talk about, just put it in the comments, let us know, and we can talk about it as well. But I'm Bwanka with the Compass team.
And it's Safras with the Compass team.
So, if you liked it, send it to somebody if you think they're going to get some value from it. But always make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys again soon.